So, Camilla Parker Bowles is the Queen Consort of England, wearing a crown and living in a palace. And yet, her own son was reportedly turned away at the gates of Windsor Castle under her husband's reign. And the man said to have given that order was Prince William. That's where this story begins. And honestly, it becomes far more complex from there because this wasn't described as a scheduling conflict or a security mix-up. It was portrayed as a deliberate, calculated decision by the future king to draw a firm line about who belongs inside the royal circle and who doesn't. And the person on the other side of that line was his father's wife. If you haven't already, hit subscribe and join us here at Royal Brief because we're following all of this as it unfolds. The night everything reportedly reached a breaking point was supposed to be a magnificent evening of royal elegance at Windsor Castle during the Windsor Charity Gala. Dignitaries, aristocrats, global benefactors, the entire polished production was designed to present the monarchy. Before we continue, subscribe to Crown Confidential for the latest royal stories you won't hear anywhere else. At its most unified and majestic. Camilla had reportedly been working behind the scenes to ensure her eldest son, Tom Parker Bowles, would be included among the honored guests. Now, Tom Parker Bowles isn't a stranger to royal circles. He's a well-known food critic and author who has spent years attending family events, just never in an official capacity and never formally acknowledged as part of the royal institution. Camilla, now that she's Queen Consort, reportedly believed it was finally time to bring her children into the fold more openly, beginning with Tom's participation in high-profile royal occasions. She made her request, pressed the issue, and even involved King Charles, believing her husband might persuade his son to reconsider. But William reportedly viewed the situation very differently. This wasn't a private dinner or an informal family gathering. This was a royal occasion steeped in history and symbolism. William is often seen as someone who believes symbolism carries enormous weight. He understands that every photograph, every seating arrangement, and every name on a guest list sends a message about who the monarchy recognizes and who it does not. So when the guest list was finalized, Tom Parker Bowles' name was reportedly absent, and Camilla was said to be stunned. She pleaded, negotiated, and explored every possible avenue, but William reportedly remained unwavering. Then came the actual night of the gala. Guests in sparkling gowns and tailored suits arrived at Windsor's gates, cameras flashed, and limousines rolled through. Tom Parker Bowles reportedly attempted to enter with his mother's entourage. What happened next is the part many found difficult to imagine. Security personnel, reportedly acting on clear instructions, denied him entry. Eyewitnesses described a deeply awkward moment. Tom's visible shock, the silence, and the humiliation of being politely turned away while everyone else continued into the castle left a lasting impression. Inside, Camilla reportedly had to continue smiling for the cameras, greeting guests, and performing the role of gracious Queen Consort while absorbing what was described as one of the most personal and public humiliations she had faced since taking on the role. Those present claimed her jaw appeared tense and her hands trembled slightly. For the first time in years, she was said to look vulnerable rather than majestic. This wasn't portrayed as a subtle snub handled quietly behind closed doors. It was described as a highly public rejection delivered at the gates of Windsor Castle with the world's attention fixed on the event. When the gala ended, the last guest departed, and the cameras stopped flashing, Camilla reportedly broke down. Sources claimed she collapsed into a chair within those historic walls, her composure completely shattered, emotional, and deeply humiliated, not only as Queen Consort but as a mother. One staff member allegedly said it was the expression in her eyes that stayed with him. Not anger at first, but complete disbelief, as though she genuinely couldn't accept that William had gone through with it. According to these accounts, William gave the order. Her son was denied admission to a royal gathering she had personally helped organize. In doing so, William was said to have reinforced a firm and unmistakable boundary between Camilla's family and the monarchy's inner circle. Camilla reportedly told her aides afterward, "I thought we were past this. I thought we were family." That statement, if accurate, illustrates the gap between what she believed her position represented and what William was reportedly prepared to accept. She had assumed that becoming Queen Consort would finally bring her children the acceptance she had hoped for over decades. But William's reported actions suggested that titles and crowns do not erase history. To understand why William reportedly took such a firm position, many believe you have to look beyond royal protocol and toward the emotional foundation of his identity, his mother, Princess Diana. Her presence may have left the world in 1997, but for William, many believe she never truly disappeared. Her values, her legacy, and the pain surrounding her life have remained deeply influential. More than any royal title, Diana shaped the future King of England. William wasn't only the heir to the throne from birth. He was also the son of a woman adored by millions who, in the eyes of many, had been deeply hurt by the institution he was destined to lead. As a child, he witnessed his mother's struggles, relentless media attention, and the constant whispers surrounding Camilla, betrayal, and palace secrets. Then, in one devastating night, she was gone. That kind of loss leaves a permanent mark. For William, many believe it created a quiet but unwavering determination, never allow what happened to Diana to happen again, not to his wife, not to his children, and not under his watch. If he could prevent it, he would not embrace the version of monarchy that, in his view, had failed his mother. Instead, he would honor Diana's legacy through measured, principled, and deliberate decisions. So where does Queen Camilla fit into that emotional landscape? No matter how much the royal press worked to reshape her public image, many believe William could never completely forget the role she played in his mother's story. She wasn't simply Charles's longtime companion. In William's eyes, according to this narrative, she was the woman who stood between his mother and the marriage that was supposed to anchor the monarchy. Yes, William has shown signs of acceptance over the years. His exchanged smiles, handshakes, and polite public appearances with Camilla. He even supported her becoming queen consort following Queen Elizabeth II passing, but insiders say those gestures were always diplomatic armor rather than genuine affection. Behind the scenes, his relationship with Camilla has reportedly remained chilly, cautious, and quietly strained. He considered her presence important to his father's happiness, but never as a cornerstone of the monarchy's future. As Camilla's role expanded, the line between tolerance and trust reportedly became even sharper. She progressed from Duchess of Cornwall to Queen Consort. Her name began appearing in headlines alongside Queen Elizabeth II and even Princess Diana's. That was reportedly the line William could never allow her to cross. Diana wasn't just his mother. She was a legacy. And in William's view, many believe that legacy was gradually being rewritten, softened, and reshaped to make room for the woman who had caused her so much pain. So Camilla's reported effort to include her family in royal functions, beginning with Tom Parker Bowles, was never simply a logistical issue to him. It was deeply personal. Allowing Camilla's son to appear alongside blood royals in official portraits, on guest lists, and at charity galas reportedly felt like the final erasure of Diana's sacrifice. William reportedly said it wasn't about Tom personally. It was about what Tom represented, a quiet attempt to legitimize a lineage that, in William's view, simply did not belong. Here's the thing about how William reportedly operates. Multiple palace sources claimed his expression barely changed when he declined Camilla's request. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply said no. When questioned, he reportedly responded, "This isn't about the guest list. It's about what we stand for." That has always been described as William's guiding principle, not personal grudges, but values. He sees himself as both the future guardian of the crown and the ultimate protector of his mother's dignity. So when he reportedly closed the gates of Windsor to Camilla's son, supporters argue it wasn't an act of cruelty. It was a powerful display of conviction, an unspoken message to Camilla and to the world that Diana still matters. Her legacy remains alive, and no one, not even a queen, will be able to rewrite that truth for as long as William lives. But what happened next reportedly shifted the story from a single dramatic evening into something far more systematic. If the Windsor Charity Gala was viewed as a public humiliation, what followed was described as an even colder and more deliberate move directed at Queen Camilla's personal world. Only weeks after Camilla was reportedly left reeling from the humiliation of her son being turned away, Prince William's administration made another significant decision. This time it wasn't about guest lists or charity appearances. It was about money, legacy, and influence. And it involved someone even closer to Camilla than many people realize, her sister, Annabel Elliot. For nearly 2 decades, Annabel had quietly played an important role within the royal household. She is a respected interior designer who oversaw the refurbishment and aesthetic modernization of numerous properties within the Duchy of Cornwall, the vast royal estate traditionally controlled by the heir to the throne. Annabel was appointed during King Charles's time as Duke of Cornwall, and her work covered dozens of high-value projects, from restoring historic cottages to curating luxury rental residences throughout Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. She earned her position through years of professional work. According to financial records, Annabel received hundreds of thousands of pounds in payments over the years before Charles became king, including a substantial sum of around £25,000 in one fiscal year for her design services. But when Charles became king in September 2022, authority and financial control of the duchy transferred to Prince William. According to royal financial documents and palace sources, William moved quickly to redraw the boundaries. William reportedly chose not to renew Annabel Elliott's long-standing contract for the 2023 to 2024 fiscal year. There was no fanfare, no official announcement, just a quiet omission, a single line through her name. And just like that, Camilla's family was officially removed from the royal payroll. To the public, it may have appeared to be a routine administrative decision or simple budget restructuring. But inside palace circles, it was reportedly viewed as a major turning point. This represented Camilla's last remaining line of family influence within the monarchy's day-to-day operations. Her son had reportedly been denied royal recognition. Now her sister, who had worked with the duchy for nearly 20 years, was removed from the inner workings of royal infrastructure. Her position, her income, and her prestige disappeared with the stroke of a pen. The timing could hardly have been more difficult for Camilla personally. Annabel had stood beside her through every major milestone, from her earliest public appearances to the coronation itself, where she proudly served as a coronation attendant. Their bond, strengthened through decades of shared scrutiny and survival, had become one of Camilla's strongest personal supports. Watching her sister reportedly pushed aside, not because of wrongdoing or incompetence, but because William considered her role no longer necessary, was said to be devastating. Palace insiders claimed Camilla was deeply distressed by the decision. One source reportedly said it wasn't about the money. It was about the message. Her family was no longer welcome in the new royal era. William, for his part, maintained complete silence. Official sources explained that the duchy had matured under its new leadership and that staff members had learned enough through Annabel's guidance to continue operating independently. But many observers believed it went beyond efficiency. They viewed it as another reinforcement of William's invisible boundary around the monarchy's core, signaling that bloodline and tradition would take precedence over personal relationships, regardless of years of service or family connections. Camilla reportedly understood the pattern by then. First her son. Then her sister. Each quiet rejection was more than a simple snub. It was presented as a firm and systematic reassertion of William's authority within the royal family structure, and this is where the larger strategy reportedly becomes visible. William's decision to exclude Tom Parker Bowles from the Windsor Charity Gala wasn't presented as a spontaneous reaction to a guest list request. It was described as part of a carefully planned, long-term approach that has reportedly been evolving quietly since Queen Elizabeth II's death. While the monarchy outwardly projected unity and a seamless succession, William was reportedly carrying out something far more deliberate, redrawing the royal boundaries and defining the institution on his own terms. His strategy is fundamentally about control, not just tradition. Since becoming Prince of Wales, William has had to navigate an increasingly complex royal landscape. A father attempting to balance personal love with public duty. A stepmother whose presence remains controversial no matter how many years pass. A brother who has completely stepped away from royal life. And a public more divided than ever over the relevance of the monarchy. In William's view, maintaining the monarchy's long-term legitimacy requires more than public approval. It demands internal clarity, strict adherence to lineage, and unwavering boundary setting. From his perspective, Camilla had reportedly begun to blur those lines. Her growing influence with King Charles, her efforts to introduce her family into royal settings, and her quiet but persistent desire to be recognized not only as queen consort but also as a maternal figure in a new royal era were all seen, according to this narrative, as challenges to the institution's traditional boundaries. According to this account, William believes those developments threatened the sanctity of the crown, the very institution he feels his mother dedicated her life to protecting. So when Camilla requested Tom's inclusion at the gala, William reportedly didn't see a simple request. He saw a test, a subtle assertion of influence, and responded not with emotion but with a decision that spoke volumes without saying a word. By denying Tom access, William reportedly sent a clear and unmistakable message: royalty is defined through lineage and duty, not through association. There would be no expansion of the inner circle. There would be no redefining what the royal family looks like based on marriage or convenience. For William, supporters argue, the monarchy's survival depends on preserving its distinct identity, one shaped over centuries by lineage, responsibility, and sacrifice. Palace insiders claim William has made similar decisions before, and they believe this won't be the last. Since taking control of the Duchy of Cornwall, he has reportedly introduced measures that prioritize streamlined spending, reduced favoritism, and greater transparency. Long-serving appointees from the Charles and Camilla era have quietly seen their positions reassigned or discontinued. According to these reports, William is building a monarchy that is leaner, more disciplined, and far less vulnerable to personal influence. To the public, he remains the composed modern heir, a husband, a father, and a future king. But behind palace walls, many describe him as a careful strategist, steadily narrowing the royal circle, shaping its future, and ensuring that when he eventually ascends the throne, the institution reflects his vision rather than the compromises of previous generations. Camilla may wear the crown, but in William's reported vision, her authority is largely symbolic rather than strategic. She is a figurehead, not a policymaker. And regardless of how close she remains to her family, this narrative suggests they will never gain access to the monarchy's true centers of influence. What makes this entire situation so striking, according to those accounts, is how completely Camilla has remained silent. No public statements. No rebuttals. No carefully placed interviews. Those close to her reportedly say the emotional toll is becoming increasingly visible. The composure remains, but the spark appears diminished. A woman who once fought tirelessly to prove her place now moves more cautiously and more quietly, as though fully aware that she may never truly possess the institution she spent decades trying to join. According to this interpretation, William has made one point unmistakably clear: Diana's legacy will not be erased, not by time, not by titles, and certainly not by Camilla's family. This is portrayed not as tabloid drama but as a gradual strategic shift in power that has left Camilla increasingly isolated within the palace she once believed she had finally secured. Her influence, which many felt had been steadily rising for years, is now described as being in visible decline. And with every quiet act of exclusion, William's message reportedly grows stronger. This monarchy, according to that view, runs on bloodlines, not branches. Camilla may have married the king, but she will never become his son's queen. And when you look at the sequence of events, the gala, the contract decision, and the pattern of quiet yet irreversible moves, it becomes clear that William is portrayed not as reacting to isolated requests but as executing a long-term vision for the monarchy, one that leaves no place for the family his father married into. And he is said to be doing it with a calm, unwavering resolve that leaves little doubt about who many believe will ultimately shape the future of the House of Windsor.